That's not bad. Good enough.
Solid.
Solid. Welcome back to, I actually have a name now. It's Between the Takes. That's what I call this little interview podcast sort of thing.
That's nice.
Yeah, I came up with that after the last band, so I'm excited to actually use it in the title announcement of it. But I'm here with Victoria the Ninth. Just came out of doing her sessions, and we are so stoked for those. They're gonna be great.
Same. I'm pumped. You guys have such a great setup. It's great working with you guys, so I'm excited to see the final product.
Yeah. Tell the people, because this is the first one that we've done in this space, and being able to utilize the window for the natural light through like the first two videos, and then even just like the moody vibes we were able to pull out of like the whole room being extra dark at the end was just amazing. The options for all the wide shots versus all the close-up shots, it's really expanded what we can do compared to how we were in the basement, which we originally started talking when we only had the basement, but I'm really excited that we were able to kind of push back and reschedule for the studio.
Yeah, I'm honored to be the first one in here.
You're breaking it in.
Hey.
But yeah, tell us a little bit about your music, yourself. What would you really call your genre that you like to make your music in?
I'm definitely influenced by jazz. I grew up listening to the greats, Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, Nat King Cole, Billie Holiday. And so I definitely draw on them, and how those love songs just paint such a picture. Yeah. And they're also like so pure-hearted. And I think that's definitely the era of music that inspires me most. And so I like to put a modern spin on it, though, and kind of make it for today, make it still kind of relatable and in today's terms, with a lo-fi beat behind it sometimes and whatnot. But so I'd say kind of a jazzy pop is kind of how I describe it to people who just ask.
That's a really good description, though, because I listened to a couple of your songs, and I was feeling the jazzy vibes in it. So I was really curious what you were going to describe it as. Yeah, but I like that. I like that a lot.
It's fair.
Especially with the whole bossa nova thing that you were doing on the last one.
Yeah.
That one, just the whole vibe of it just felt like it was flowing the whole way through.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, that was my aim.
How long have you been doing music?
So I first released my very first album as Victoria the Ninth in 2018, but I started playing drums when I was 8.
Oh,
started playing guitar when I was 13, writing songs around the same time. So it's really been like a whole lifelong passion of mine, but it's just been since 2018 that I've been kind of recording and making music, and now producing my own music since 2020.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's just a whole journey, and it's going to keep going.
Oh, yeah. No, love that. Love to hear that. That's actually something unique. You don't get to hear about a lot of women who started their musical journey with drums. Like, female drummers are, it feels like few and far between. So I always love hearing about a girl who got into drums as a kid. What was it that drew you to drums first?
It's such a good story. So, I mean, I was just at the kitchen table, and just must have been beating, doing a rhythm or something. My mom just looks at me. She's like, "Do you want to play drums?" I was like, "Sure." And the next day, she goes out to a Salvation Army store and buys a beaten up drum set for $16. Like cracked cymbals, just a piece of junk. But that's how I started learning, honestly. So
I mean, I feel like as a parent, you can't really put too much money into a set of drums for your kid to beat on.
No, they knew. They were like, let's see where this goes. And then, I got a nicer one eventually.
I'm sure that's funny. Yeah. What kind of influences did you have as far as drummers went? Like, what did you feel like was really drawing you? Because I can't imagine a little kid starting out like, oh yeah, I want to play drums like what's on the Frank Sinatra albums.
No, not exactly. It's so funny. It's whenever I get into a room of other drummers and they're talking about this famous drummer and they're talking about this cymbal brand and all, I'm like, I have nothing to contribute. Literally, it was just the love of like rhythm and the love of like beating the drums and getting a good sound out of it. My parents were church planners and pastors growing up, so I was always playing in church. I was their go-to drummer on a Sunday morning when, everyone else bailed. So I never really got into researching the big names or listening to bands and be like, oh, I love that guy's beat. I just loved playing drums. And so it kind of was a little like tunnel vision for me. I had the blinders on and all I could see was the instrument and not like the world of the instrument, if that makes any sense.
That does. And I feel like that gives you almost a unique perspective as a drummer, because so many drummers will pull from their idol, from their main person that they always looked up to. Now I need to hear you play drums on something. But like that's just such a unique take that I haven't heard from many drummers, where they're just like, they're all in it for the love of drumming. They're all in it for the love of the rhythm. But I feel like none of them were able to just form such a unique sound without too many other influences.
I mean, and I really just pulled here and there throughout middle school, high school, college years. I had a great instructor in high school that did like kind of introduce me to the world of funk and jazz and shuffle beats and all that kind of stuff. And so I just ate that up and I loved it. But I am seeing kind of a disadvantage that I have now where I'm starting to teach kids as like a substitute kind of music teacher, and then the kids are like showing me beats from like the Dave Matthews Band song, and I'm like, oh, that's actually a sick beat. Like I should listen to music and listen to the drums and like kind of get inspired by other drummers, other beats. So I have so much to learn still, but everyone learns differently.
Yeah. Leave a comment down below. Give us some good drum beats for her to check out.
Honestly.
Oh man. So do you find yourself working mostly as a solo artist in the studio? Since you feel like you can play so much, do you ever feel yourself just really drawing from yourself, or do you like to incorporate other musicians more or less?
I go through waves, through seasons. There, when the pandemic hit is when I learned to produce, and that was obviously very isolated. But it also gave me just such a capsule of time where I could just explore and experiment and just have all the time in my days for just that. And then me and my sister did a whole project together called Mother Lion, and we made a song a week for 6 months. We wrote, produced, recorded, released a song a week. It was insanity, but I felt like that was a sort of boot camp for me to like really refine my production style. At the end of that, though, I was like, okay, I'm a little bit tired of just like what I have to think of this, like producing this song. And so from there I did kind of start inviting more musicians into the process. Now I'm writing songs with another buddy of mine, and I'm playing drums in a band. And so but there was a point where it was just me and my music, but now I'm starting to kind of open up the door a little bit and say, what do you think of this song? Or like, how would you produce this song? Or what songs do you have that I could just play drums for? Or yeah, it just comes in waves and goes through seasons.
That's cool. It's like that Dave Grohl vibe where it's like you got everything you need, so you only want to pull on people that you actually value the opinions of.
That's true. I've definitely learned to be a little more selective with who I collaborate with, because you can get in a room and write a song with anybody. But are you really going to be proud of that song? Like, will it feel like a 50-50? Like, I always compare like songwriting to driving a car. Someone's going to be in the driver's seat. Yeah. And like someone's in the passenger seat. Some people might be in the back seat. But the instances where I really feel the most kind of like rewarded at the end of a songwriting session is when like sometimes in the driver's seat, and then sometimes they take the wheel and I'm in the passenger seat, or then someone else, like I hop in the back seat, and it really feels like we're all equally contributing, and it's not just one person that's just got their hands on the wheel and that's it. So I've definitely learned to become more selective with who I collaborate with. Yeah.
That makes sense. For sure. Wow, but you said how many months did you do that song a week?
Yeah, 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That I've heard of people doing that, and I've always wanted to ask, just like, how do you keep finding any sort of inspiration for any new song? Do you feel like you repeat a lot of ideas and concepts? Do you feel like you're always finding something new? Did you find it hard to keep yourself within a certain type of genre? Did you not even try to do that?
Yeah, it was really just such a time of exploration that we didn't set any boundaries on ourselves except a time limit. That was really our boundary. So we did end up exploring so many genres. We went from lo-fi to trap and rap and spoken word to like ambient spoken word to disco to straight pop. We went all over the map. We went all over the map, and it was so much fun. So we just learned so much, but it was funny, like at the end of it all, taking a step back and seeing our catalog and just trying to organize them or market them, because they could get so vastly different. But still, a lot of our songwriting centered around our experiences as sisters, which was really beautiful. So each song still felt thematically cohesive because it was our voices, our experiences. But it just left so much room for exploration of genre. And this might get some flack, because I know that some producers are like, if you pull a sample, you didn't really produce it. But I used samples. And, when I found one that inspired me, then I went with it.
Yeah.
And so I would make a beat around that, or just like a little 4-bar kind of loop. And then from there, we would build out a whole song. So or we might hear a song on the radio, and I'd be like, I would love to try and make something like that. So you just find inspiration anywhere, or maybe we just sit down and it's just me playing guitar and then us writing song from scratch. The genesis of every song looked different. So it was a great experiment at the end of the day.
I mean, like, to argue that point about the whole sample thing, would you say that a rapper didn't write a song because he bought the beat? Would you say that all these artists who just bought the beat and then wrote their vocals over it, is it not their song?
Well, I would argue that they didn't produce the song.
Yeah.
They for sure wrote it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And like those are their lyrics and all that. But if you bought a beat, I don't know if you produced the song necessarily.
Okay, so you're talking about producing, not necessarily the writing side. Okay, that kind of makes sense, but at the same time, that one sample isn't the entire song.
Yeah. That's true, but it's funny. I have, since producing all this Motherline stuff where I did use a lot of samples, I've heard a sample that I used in another song, and I felt a certain way about it. And since then, I was like, I don't know if I like using samples anymore. At least, like, maybe not just outright. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about samples. Yeah.
I'm a stickler when it comes to samples. I personally don't like using samples because I'm just like, where's the raw musicality of it? Like, I wanna make it. I want the authenticity. I want it to be really here. I want it to be purely and originally from here, from this artist, from me, from whoever is involved in the session.
I can completely respect that. But at the same time, when I went into this Motherline experience and just started producing like crazy, I didn't have access to a blues piano player just on a whim. But here was a sample, and I was like, I can't play that. Yeah. But I want a song with that vibe, like with that feel. And if what's in my head I want to create, then I don't have the ability to do that, then I'm going to pull a sample. So it's like, but I completely understand where you're coming from.
It's a double-sided sword. Like, I agree with both sides. I find myself more on the one more often just because it, like, especially with drummers, like, they'll be like, oh, you can just sample a snare on that. I'm like, or you could just learn how to tune your snare. Yeah.
I also live in a tiny studio apartment where, like, I don't have space for an acoustic set. So I kind of have to pull samples. So it's just, it's your availability. It's what you have as your resources on hand. And kind of making it work if you don't have the resources available too. Yeah.
With myself, I'm like, I have the resources, so
That's amazing.
I feel like I have to hold myself to that standard. It's like, I can't let it go to waste. I can't feel like I'm wasting what I have.
Bravo. Kudos to you, honestly.
But from the bedroom side, I do love how, not easy, because it's not easy, but like how available it is for all these creative people to be able to make the songs. Because think about, with all that we have technology-wise available, imagine how many songs and how many songwriters wouldn't have put out their art, their music without all of these abilities. There's some exactly.
Honestly.
Yeah, you wouldn't
Yeah.
be at the level you're at now without those options available and without them still currently available to you.
Yeah.
Like that's why it's amazing.
Yeah, so
that's why it's beautiful.
The accessibility of learning music production, becoming a producer, producing your own music is just more accessible than it's ever been before. And so that's why I kind of love bedroom pop, is because it just epitomizes that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. With the 6 months, did you guys put the song out every week like you did each song individually, or did you find yourself doing them as like a collection at the end of the month?
Like we released one every Friday.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I was asking. Sorry.
Yeah, but the processes overlapped in really fascinating ways. Like in 1 week, we would be writing one song that would be released maybe 3 weeks later, but then I'd be producing another one that might be released 2 weeks later, and then my sister would be pitching the vocals, my brother-in-law would be mixing and mastering, and that would be released 1 week later.
Yeah.
So it's like within 1 week we're working on 3, 4, 5 different songs. Yeah.
What did you find yourself releasing on? Because I know some people like to use DistroKid, and they have it where sometimes with DistroKid or different publishing services, it takes like 2 weeks for them to really be like, yeah, this will actually come out on the date you want and be on all platforms.
I think we used DistroKid, and I think they had a pretty decent turnaround time
Yeah.
of just like 72 hours. So
Okay.
we didn't run into any kind of obstacles like that.
Okay. I think it's maybe like first time users. Like if you've never released
Maybe.
anything before, it like takes a hot minute for them to really get you connected to every platform like you're supposed to be.
And I think our first single we did upload like 4 weeks in advance.
Okay.
And so I think we kind of had that buffer time work in our advantage. I can't remember. It was a little while
it
ago.
was a
I can't
while
remember
ago.
the logistics.
These are just little things that I'm always like curious about working with some of the artists that I have, because most of the time I'm like, all right, here's the final product, good luck, and I don't always have the knowledge to really help them in those spaces.
I kind of, those are the parts of making music and releasing music that I do not care for. I wish I didn't have to worry about the upload and the marketing and the saying, hey guys, listen to my music. Like, just want to make it. And that's it.
Yeah, there's a huge rise of all these artists. Like, I don't want to be a content creator. I just want to make my music.
Yeah. Right here. Exhibit A. Exhibit A, folks. Yeah, definitely.
TikTok will be a much more enjoyable place when we don't have to do that.
Yes. I'm not even on TikTok. I mean, people talking about the trends. I'm out. I'm out of it. I'm a boomer in that sense.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Within those 6 weeks as well, you said you like took a step back at the very end and were like looking back through, and you saw all the ebbs and flows of like genres and all the twists and turns in the path you took. Did you feel like you really saw just a steady rise in the production value because of your learning and like how you were picking it up as you went?
I think so. It's funny. My friend actually, my producer who produced my first album, like before I was producing myself, and my second one, we kind of like did 50-50 on it. He was the first one to say this, where he's like, I told him that I was starting to produce music in 2020, and he got so excited for me, and he said, you are right now in a place where you don't know anything, you don't know the rules that you're breaking, and that's just such a special, unique place that you won't ever be again once you learn the rules. So I look at my earlier stuff for Motherline that I produced as compared to the later stuff, and yeah, the later stuff is more refined, it feels a little more full, there's like kind of the frequencies and all that stuff are leveled out, it just kind of feels more polished. But there's something in the early stuff that's just bombastic and is like, I didn't know what rules I was breaking. I was creating purely off instinct, and it has its own value. It might not be so polished and might not be so like a trained ear can hear, oh, this is like professional grade, but it just had a quality to it that I don't know with my experience now as a producer that I'd be able to get back. So yeah.
So it's almost more like an authenticity, like you don't feel any limitations. You don't feel like you're in a box for the production side.
Like currently, or
like back then it's like what your mentor was saying, like you were not limited. You weren't held in by rules that all these other people feel like they're supposed to follow.
Essentially. And now I'm kind of in a place where I want to experiment again, but it's almost more difficult because I know the sounds that I like, and I know like how to polish something off, and I know like you kind of don't want to do that and you kind of do want to do this, and I almost want to forget those rules and start experimenting again, whereas back at the beginning of that journey, like I had no idea what I was doing, and so it really created something unique and special in its own right. Yeah.
Something I've found, like, because I'll feel the same way. I'll feel like I'm in a rut working on a mix or recording or something, and I will make a rule for myself in this session. Like, I'm going to get a copy for the client. They're going to get the polished, whatever it is they wanted. Like, we're going to get that sound down, but I'm going to come back and work on it at some point on my own, and I'm going to make a rule for myself. I can't use these 3 plugins that I use in every session on every track. I have to use something else. I have to find an alternative or just different way or different sound to achieve.
Yeah, that's cool. So I'm working on a third album for Victoria the Ninth, and I kind of gave myself a similar like mentality of let's have the limited resources that we have now work to our creative advantage and just like try and work within limits. And so I'm for the first time told myself no samples. And and I went to my church, and I had one microphone that was not a great microphone, so I didn't even have like the drums mic'd up like how you properly want them to. And I said, we're gonna make this work, and maybe I'll replace the kick and the snare later, but let's like just get the ball rolling now with me playing drums on my music for the first time ever, because I have been just using samples and like other tracks and stuff. So I love that, like the creativity that happens when you work within limits and when you give yourself kind of these like challenges to overcome.
Yeah. Because I feel like that's the only way to grow, especially when you're not always getting to be around somebody who does the same thing as you. You don't have someone to feed off of, and like you pull from their ideas, they pull from your ideas. You have to force yourself to find those new ideas.
Exactly.
That's so cool. When's that project coming out?
Don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
It's still in the creation process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's better know that we're going to find it when it comes out, because I want to hear that now.
Nice.
But yeah, okay. Well, that's cool. Well, what platforms could we find that announcement on when it does come out?
I'm big on Instagram, so like I said, not on TikTok. So follow me on Instagram at faith.victoria.d. And I'll just be keeping you updated there.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to try and have links for everything down in the description. I'm going to have Spotify, Apple Music, Instagram. If she has a Linktree or anything else, I will have that for you so that you can find her on there. But thank you so much for coming on. Seriously,
gosh,
like this was
you.
a lot of fun having you in for the session. Again, first one in the studio. I'm so excited for people to have seen these. They've seen them previously since this comes out after logistics.
Got you.
But yeah, thank you again so much for coming on.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Seriously, this has been a blast.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for checking out Between the Takes. Please be sure to leave a like and comment. Tell us what you think of her sessions, and subscribe for more.
Dragons on my own. Will I be strong enough to let my sword go?